There I was in the Western Cape, Franschhoek, also in Drakenstein, an area which was under the Stellenbosch municipality. I would have said that it is under Franschhoek municipality because it's in the same valley as Franschhoek, because Stellenbosch is on the other side of the mountain, the Groot Drakenstein mountains. There was a young person from Malawi amongst the environment that was so new. I mean, everything for me was new. Looking at the farms, the way the farms were designed, looking at the green scenery, it was unbelievable for me. But for me, I couldn't care less. I was in South Africa. I was in Western Cape. Here I was, got a job. There was nothing else that I could think of. Looking at the people that I was seeing there, colored people everywhere. I couldn't see a lot of black people at that time because there weren't a lot of black people. Although in the area, there was a company that was producing fruits. They were doing fruit canning, and they had some hostels where a lot of black people were staying there. You must remember, this was in 1989. That was the time when the discussions were on the way, discussing about ending of apartheid. So there was still a little bit of segregation whereby black people used to stay in their own areas and the colored people were staying in their own areas. And here I was amongst the colored. And most of the times when I used to travel with Denlene and her family, going to Stellenbosch for shopping over the weekends, a lot of people used to wonder, what is this black guy doing amongst the colored people? And for me, the only language that I could hear was Afrikaans. I found Afrikaans to be a very, very interesting language. It was kind of a very aggressive language, like a language that was like full of violence. I used to hear every now and then people arguing with one another. Futsek, your massa. It was very, very interesting to see how these people could, use this language in a very aggressive way. But also, I found that language to be a little bit so romantic to me. Ekezrifeyo, I love you. Just smack me, just smack me net, just smack me, just smack me ne. Ekezrifeyo. So at the time, the music, every time where I used to go, I would see a lot of colored people carrying these big music systems and listening to their music as they're walking. The music is in Afrikaans. And I would wonder, how does this person deal with this situation where he's putting this big music system with big round speakers and it's just playing so loud on his ears? This was a time when, in Malawi, when I was living, it was a time for break dancing. We used to listen to break dancing music. But then in the Cape, when I came, they had their own type of rap music. They used to rap in Afrikaans at that time. So that was the weekend that I arrived at Microprop with Dr. Eric Farringer and his wife, Claire. And they put me in the shed where I used to stay. And next door, I made friends with the people that were living in some caravans. There was a couple of caravans there. I later learned that this was like just one family. They were cousins and family members living together there. And I made a friend by the name of Denlene. And it was very important for me to meet Denlene because Denlene showed me a lot of things. Over the weekend, Denlene would take me with her sisters and a little daughter. She had a little daughter. They would take me to Stellenbosch for shopping. There would come a bus on a Saturday morning where we would all board in that bus and take us to Stellenbosch for shopping. She used to say, we like to go and shop in Stellenbosch. We don't like to go shop in Paarl. But I believed, or I felt power was much more closer than Stellenbosch, but they preferred to go to Stellenbosch. So one day we went to Stellenbosch for shopping. It was the first time for me to come to a much more bigger town, because the town that I had lived in Plettenberg Bay was very, very small. But Stellenbosch, because of the university, was a little bit much bigger. And there was a much bigger shopping mall with an open field. I remember there was an open field where people would have some picnics there, some functions going on there. It was so amazing for me. So, yeah, then Lynn would be teaching me every now and then Afrikaans. I started learning. My name is Ted. What is your name? What is your name? I used to learn a little bit of Afrikaans. That Monday came, I had to go to work. So I went to the farm, to the office of Dr. Eric Faringer, and there he introduced to me to the foreman who was working inside the laboratory. Her name was Mina. So the farm had the outside area where they had sheds where they were putting the plants there, like nurseries. And inside the farm, the building itself, it had a laboratory where there was a lot of women. There was over 20 women working inside there. So he called me and he said, Ted, this is Amina. She will be working with you. She's a supervisor who is supervising inside there. She will be teaching you how to work on the computer. So he taught Mina to be showing me how to work on the computer. So I would go inside the laboratory. So when we went inside the laboratory in the morning, we would not come out until we knock off. This was because the plant, the laboratory was very sensitive for the plants. Microprop was a company that do a kind of a propagation of plants. They would take small plants and plant them in small little bottles, which had jelly in there. It was some kind of like the Vaseline jelly. It was those kind of things inside there. So they would take these plants and put them inside, and then they would be put on shelves. So they were not allowed to get exposed to the sun. So they only had some lights inside there, but they were not allowed to get exposed to the sun. Now, because these plants were not allowed to get exposure to the sun, these plants would try to look for light. So they would grow very, very fast. So within like a week, you find that a small plant that was like this has grown a little bit taller and it's got a lot of branches. So inside there, the ladies will take these tins when the plants have grown a little bit. They'll take these tins with jelly and the plants, and then what we used to do is in the morning when you're coming into the laboratory, you had to get disinfected. So we had to wash our hands with chemicals. We had to step on chemical stuff to kill bacteria. And then everybody was working with gloves and nets in their head. So the women there, they were using some kind of knives, like the ones that they use for operations in the hospital. These knives were being used, knives and some scissors. So what they would do is they would take the bottle, which had jelly and the plant in there, and then they'll put it on a desk, and they'll pull the plant from the jelly using the scissor, the tweezer, and then they'll cut the plant into small pieces, removing the branches. And say, for example, a plant will have about 4 or 5 branches, then they will remove them, and with a tweezer, they will take the branches and plant them again in little bottles with jellies, meaning that one plant would be able to produce maybe another 4 plants. So they will it was almost like a process of multiplying the plants. So what was happening with Microprop was that the big companies which were around the area, the fruit canning companies, they had their own orchards where they were growing peaches, plums, and apricots. So they will give an order to Microprop, to the doc, and say, we want 10,000 plants of apples. So doc will be in this laboratory busy multiplying these plants. So if you go and search for micropropagation, you will understand what I'm talking about. So this was done inside the laboratory. So it was done with these ladies. So me, I was there to put the information, the data in the computer about the amount of plants that have been propagated on the day. So that to check and see how long it's going to take to reach the target of the plants that was required. So once the target has been reached, these plants were taken outside and put in the nursery, and they will be given water for them to grow. And after they've grown up a size, the right size, they'll be put in these plastic bags and planted there, and then they will be taken to be delivered to the people who press the order. So this was a very interesting kind of business for me that to get exposed to it. So I would be inside the laboratory, the only guy and the only black guy, and with all ladies in there. You know, so during lunchtime, we will all sit down, each one of us take out their container, and we start eating, and we start making jokes inside there. So I started making friends with these ladies inside. I remember one day they called me into the room from the office, because me, I used to sit in the office on the computer, and then they called me to come inside the area where the laboratory where they were working. So you must understand that this place had no windows. It was just a room with a roof and ceiling without any windows, just the door. So once you go inside there and they close the door, you don't have place where you can say there'll be a window or whatever. So there was like air condition to bring in cool air inside there. So they called me to come in there. So inside there was a corridor, and both sides there was just shelves where they were having these plants. And at the end there was like benches where these ladies would sit there and do their operating the plants. So when I came, they asked me, they wanted me to get something on the shelf for them because it was a bit higher. I didn't know that they had planned to jump on me. So when I got inside there, they told me to climb on this bench to get this thing. Just as I was about to jump on there, one of the girls switched the lights off, and the place just became so dark. And before I knew it, I had hands all over me. I started screaming and shouting. And then they got so scared and then nervous, and they put the lights on again. I was very angry with them, and they were all laughing, some of them falling to the ground. Ted, James Bang! Ted, you are afraid! I didn't like this at all, because I know these girls were just about to jump me on that day. I opened the door and went to the office. And from that time onwards, I never really dared to come into the laboratory again. And they always laugh at me and say, I'm scared, I'm afraid. So this was very strange for me. I remember telling the doc what happened, and the doc was laughing, and they said, Ted, these are colored girls. You know, you will get used to them. They're just like that. You know, I remember Doc would tell me sometimes to say, you know, Ted, you have to be very careful who you are mixing with. The colored people are okay, but you must be very careful with the black people, because maybe they don't know you. You know, here there's still this segregation and all these things, and you don't speak the language and all those things. So you have to be very, very careful how you deal with the people. Yeah, so I started living there and this was during December time. So it's just about to become Christmas. I remember one Friday evening, the doc called me to his house. It was around maybe 7 o'clock. And he said to me, Ted, I would like you to do us a favor. Me and my wife, we want to go out. So we want you to babysit our children. So Doc had 2 daughters. I think the eldest one was about 7 years of age, and the younger one was about 6 years of age. So he asked me to look after these kids. And then they had bought some snacks and some chips and some popcorn, and hired some DVD for us to watch. And then Doc and Claire left. So there I was with these two little girls in the house. And they were very, very clever girls. More especially the older one was very, very clever. She said, Ted, I want you to watch. Have you ever watched Home Alone? I said, I've never watched Home Alone. She said, no, you must watch Home Alone. So there she was putting the CD, and we were sitting in the sitting room and eating popcorn and watching Home Alone. And this elder girl would always be telling me what was going to happen in the next scene. So that was the first time that I watched Home Alone. I think it's Kevin, the actor. So by the time the video was finishing, they were all fast asleep. So what I did is I carried each one of them and put them to let them lie down on their bed. And I was sitting in the sitting room watching movies. And then later Doc came sometime in the morning, around maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. They came, found me still sitting at the sitting room waiting for them. They asked me, where are the kids? I said, no, they've gone to sleep. They're tired. They said, Ted, thank you very much for taking care of our children. And then I left, going back to my shed. So yeah, I was enjoying myself in this place, new place, Groot Drakenstein. And sometimes I'll take a walk on my own, just to look around. Then I discovered that on the edge of this farm, a little bit further away, there was a factory where they were doing canning fruits. The cool beans and cool peas, they are canned there in Drakenstein by this company, Anglo-American. So on the other side of the factory, there was hostels. And that I discovered when I took a walk that there was a lot of black people and a lot of boys and girls. So for me, I just wanted to make friends because I remember in Plettenberg Bay, I was able to make friends with the people in the location. So I felt like, I can also make friends here. So I always wished I could make friends, but I was a bit nervous because I was warned. Even the colored people that I was living with, they were warning me not to mix with the people at the hostels because they can harm me or they can attack me. So I was always afraid. So most of the times I would just take a walk, go down to the post office there in Groot Drakenstein and by the shop to buy some snacks or something. So this other day I was walking, going to the shop. This is a very stretched road. For those who have been to Boshendal, it was that road at Boshendal, going down to the T-junction where you find the road that goes to Paul and Franschhoek. There was a shop there. So I was walking towards this place. Then I saw this big, old, I think it was a Datsun or a Chevrolet, but it's a very old car. Maybe it was made in the 1960s. Very old. This car, those cars that still use the Champion gearing, not the one here, but the Champion one. So this car just passed me, and it had a very big, loud sound. It passed me, and then it turned around, and it just stopped. And there was a black man in there with a lot of beard and looked a bit stout. And then he just leaned over because I was walking on the other side. And he said, "Hey, my friend, is your name Ted?" I said, "Yes, my name is Ted." "Are you from Malawi?" I said, "Yes, from Malawi." He said, "Come in." And I was like, where did this guy know about my name? And why does he want me to get in the car? But anyway, without hesitating, I opened the door and came in the car and sat there and closed. There he started shifting in gear, started driving off. Now he started saying, my name is Atera. I stay around this area. I want you to meet somebody. So we started driving. And when we came to the intersection, just straight across the intersection, there was a farm and there was a big entrance. So we crossed the road to this gate of the farm. And then the security guards opened this farm and then we entered this farm. This farm had very tall trees and there was a lot of shade and beautiful lawn. It was a very, very beautiful farm. And we were driving in this road going inside that farm. And deep down there, we saw these houses, like with a Dutch style house. They call them the manor house. Very beautiful. But on the other side, we diverted to the right and then we found another long stretch of white buildings. Then we came in there, and then we parked, and he said, Ted, come out. So we come out, and we came to the door of the house, and he started knocking. And then he knocked, he said, Rodwell. And then there was a man inside there, he answered. He said, yes. He said, it's me, Tetera. I brought somebody for you. So Rodwell came and opened the door. There I saw a very old man, very tall, bald, like at the back here, very bald, but very tall. And he used to walk a little bit lean like this. And he said, Rodwell, I brought Ted. He's a young man from Malawi. So Rodwell looked at me and said, oh, you are from Malawi? I said, yes. He said, come in. So I went inside and we sat in the house, a very neat house. This house was just so very neat. Everything was positioned in the right place. And then they made me sit down, and Tatera also sit down. And Tatera started introducing me. He said, this is the young man that I've been telling you, the one from Malawi. I found him walking down the street. So I just stopped and told him to come in. I could see he was very scared. And Rodwell started laughing. And he said, Rodwell, my name is Rodwell. I am from Malawi. I come from Champira in Mzimba. And I said, my name is Ted. I come from Blantyre. He says, you're a young man. What are you doing here? I said, no, I came looking for a job. And then I ended up in Plettenberg Bay. Then I met the doc here from Microprop. And the doc offered me a job. So I have been here for a couple of weeks. So Tatera said, yes, I heard about you from the girls. They told me about you. So they said there's a young Malawian boy staying on this farm. So I was always wanting to meet you. When I saw you walking in the street, I knew you must be the one because you didn't look like the guys around here. So that's why I stopped to pick you. So that day we started talking. I discovered Rodwell had come from Malawi a long time ago. In those days, there was no transport. They had to walk all the way from Malawi. He started telling me the stories of how he left Malawi and started walking to come to South Africa, passing through Zimbabwe and meeting wild animals and all those things, entering Messina, staying and getting jobs in Messina. So each and every town they would stop and get a job, work for some months, and then they would leave until they ended up in Cape Town. So he was working on this farm and in the manor house, working as a house servant. He was the one who was doing the cooking and the cleaning and everything. That is why then his house was so smart and so clean. So Rodwell, he said, Ted, you're welcome in my house anytime. So whenever you're free and you're off, you can always come here. I have no problem. You can visit anytime. So there I was. I found a Malawian living not so far from me. So that day, the Tatera took me back in the car and dropped me just in front of my shed. So I had met a Malawian and I felt so good because now I didn't feel lost anymore. I felt like I was in Malawi because now I had found a Malawian. And Rodwell was a man that imparted a lot of wisdom for me, giving me advice on how to survive in Cape Town. He told me to be careful who I make friends with, to be careful where I walk. I have to watch out because some people can attack me, can harm me. So I have to be very, very careful when I walk around. And then when I came home and started living there, so that every now and then I'll take a walk and go to an hour when I'm off. So one day while I was at my shed, relaxing. It was a weekend. I think it was a Friday evening, afternoon. I just saw a car coming in, a Ford. It was a green Ford. It just came, the Ford XR6. At that time, the Ford XR6 was very, very, very popular. And this Ford stopped in front of my shed. And then there was a young, strong guy come out, and he came there and he said, Ted? I said, yes. I said, okay, my name is Goli. I come from Bexbeck. We live on a farm called Bexbeck. And my father is Mr. Zimba. He's a friend of Rodwell. Rodwell told my father that there's a young Malawian who's staying here. So my father said, I must come and meet you. So I took him, we came inside my shed, we sat down and I said, yes, I am from Malawi. I came from Plettenberg Bay and Doc brought me here to get a job and all that stuff. So he said, you know what? I want you to come so that my father can see you. So I said, no problem, because I've got nothing to do. So I went, closed my shed. And at this time, Rachel had now left and I was alone inside the shed. I was staying alone. I had moved from sleeping on the net. Now I was sleeping on the bed inside there. And Rachel was so kind for me to leave me a few blankets that I could use. So now I used to sleep much comfortable. I had my own room and my own toilet. So Goli took me in his car and we drove all the way to Bexbeck. When we came to Bexbeck, it was like another farm that also, made me feel like, I loved the farm because it had a very long stretch of boulevard. This farm is very well known it was known for its boulevard. Like there was a lot of tall trees that when you come from the entrance, you going inside the farm, you had to drive through these trees. And many, many people used to come to the farm for wine tasting and to taste their brandy also. And when they came there, they would stop their cars and take pictures in this place. So we drove that stretch of road and until we came inside the farm to his father's house. And there I met Goli's father. He was a Malawian. So Mr. Zimba introduced himself to me and introduced the family to me. He had married a South African woman and had about 4 or 5 children because Goli was the second born. He had a sister, Veronica. May her soul rest in peace. Veronica was the firstborn, and then there was Goli, and there was Harris, and there was Rodney, and then Rachel. So they introduced me to all of them. But Veronica was actually the wife of Tatera. So that is why Tatera, he stopped that day to pick me up, to take me to Rodwell, because he was married to a daughter of a Malawian. So yeah, it was, for me, this day, it was the happiest day ever, because now here I was finding a whole family of people that, like with a father that I was able to speak to Chichewa, although his Chichewa was a little bit, he was struggling a little bit to speak Chichewa because he was also from Mzimba. He came from Champira also in Mzimba, well, Gender. He says he came from Gender. So, and then we started chatting that day. We had a long talk and the evening came and they said, no, Ted, you're not going to your place. You're going to sleep over. So I slept over. The next morning, it was Saturday. Mr. Zimba said, you're not going home. We are going together to town because every Saturday we go for shopping. We go together to Pau. So I took a bath. I didn't change my clothes, but me and the family, we went in a bus also. So there was, each and every farm during the weekends, there used to be buses that would come and collect people to take them for shopping. So we went in the bus, and in that bus, then I saw there was a lot of young people, women, men, girls in that farm. Everybody speaking Afrikaans. And there was also a little bit of black kids there that spoke a little bit of Xhosa also in there. It was an amazing experience for me getting in this bus. And then we arrived in Pau. I found that Pau was even much more busier than Stellenbosch. I liked Pau more to go into the shops for shopping and all those things. So Mr. Zimba took me around and we walked, me and him, to go and do the shopping. We bought some groceries, a ShopRite, and I was there helping to carry the bags. And then he took me to this place where Mr. Zimba used to regularly go to do some gambling. He used to do horse racing gambling. So he went there and he did his gambling there. And then we came, wait for the bus, got in the bus, came back to the farm. That day I sat and ate lunch there. It was nice, and the children, they used to just sit around me and just looking at me like they're seeing somebody who's like a strange person. They were like wondering, where did this young black guy from Malawi come from? How did he manage to come to this place so far? Because their father had left Malawi many years. He also came the same time that Rodwell came to that place, walking all the way from Malawi, passing through Zimbabwe, entering into South Africa. And each and every city that they passed, they used to stop and look for a job. It took them many months to come. And he had never been to Malawi. He had been to Malawi once when he took his young kids to go to Malawi. But since he left, he just came to Malawi once. So yeah, it was a very exciting moment for me. So that Saturday evening, God took me to drop me back to my place. And that evening, I was so happy, knowing that now I have found people that I can relate to and people that I can talk to. Now suddenly, these old Malawians started telling each other. I eventually found that there was also another Malawian, two Malawians who were in Franschhoek. So Goli one day came and picked me up in this car. He was borrowing this car from his friend. His name was Michael, this Ford XR6. So he came to pick me up. We went to go and see this other Malawian who was also two Malawians who were in Franschhoek. So I had started to make friends. And on the farm where Mr. Zimba was staying, there was also another two Malawians, Mr. Banda and I've forgotten the other one's name, Mr. Banda and Mr. Mtas. I used to go and visit. So every now and then, when I come and visit Mr. Zimba, then I will make a turn, or sometimes they will send a word to tell them that that young man is here again. So all these old people come and we sit around when we chat. They ask me about Malawi. They tell me how does Malawi look like. I must tell them, no, Malawi is developed now. And there's a capital city, Lilongwe, and all those kind of things. They will sit there and they will also tell me stories about their life when they were young. I remember they were telling me about Mr. Banda, that Mr. Banda used to be a fighter. You know, when they were much younger, they stayed in these farm areas. Mr. Banda was the one that was like all the Malawians were depending on. So whenever there's a fight, they will make sure Mr. Banda must help him, and also Mr. Mtas. But this time around, these people were very old, you know, and even the way they used to walk, they had married here, married in South Africa, they had children, but they were much older. Yeah, so that was what was happening to me in Groot Drakenstein. Met Malawians from nowhere, and then there I was. Every weekend I used to know where to go because I had so many Malawians to visit. Every weekend I would alternate. I would go to see Mr. Zimba at Bexberg. I would also go and see Mr. Miawa, or sometimes I would go to Franschhoek to see the other two Malawians. All right, so don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. If you are enjoying listening to these stories that I'm sharing, you can also watch this video. And if you want to know more about what I'm doing on my channel, watch this video. Thank you.